This story is about Shop the Neighborhood. It was Tuesday, and Lasha stepped into the house after getting home from school. "Hi, Mom," she called as she shrugged off her coat and pulled her running shoes off her feet. "I'm in the kitchen, Lasha," her mom said. Lasha rushed into the kitchen, breathless. "I have a new project from school. It's called Shop the Neighborhood, and I really don't know what it means." Lasha pulled open the fridge to look for an after-school snack to fill her tummy until dinner time. She picked a Macintosh apple and then sat down at the table to eat it. Mom sat down beside Lasha and explained. Shop the neighborhood means to shop for items that are sold in the neighborhood stores that you can walk to. That way you support the people who have businesses close by. It also means to choose items that are made or collected within 50, 100, or 200 kilometers from your house. That supports the local business people who have factories or farms close by and employs the people who live around here. Lasha took another bite of her apple. After she chewed it, she said, "We're supposed to make a list of the items we use that we buy in our neighborhood, and then each student will make a presentation for our grade 5 class." Just then, Lasha's younger sister Jalen burst into the room, running at full tilt. "I'm starving, Mom, and I can't wait for dinner," she said. "Fine," her mom said. "Pick out something from the cupboard, but make sure it's not junk." Jalen lifted herself onto the counter with an amazing move that most 7-year-old girls couldn't do. Then she climbed onto her knees, opening the cupboard, and stuck her head in to look for something she wanted. "Can I have a fruit roll-up?" were the muffled words that came from the cupboard. "Sure," said Mom. "Then come down and listen to the project that Lasha has from school." Lasha, Jalen, and their mom talked about the project and how it might be done. There weren't any stores within walking distance of their suburban home. However, they decided to pretend to visit the stores that they knew were at the plaza and just record what local items they might have bought on their iPad. Then they could print out the items when they got home and use the information for Lasha's presentation. Lasha and Jalen would do it together as a game. So, after their snacks were done, the sisters put their jackets on because the weather was starting to get chilly. They tied up their running shoes and walked out the front door with Jalen's iPad. "We'll be back in about an hour," they called as they walked down the driveway. Little did Lasha and Jalen know that in the tree just outside their house lived a mischievous fairy that loved to play tricks on children. This fairy had listened to the conversation that the girls had with their mom and thought of a great trick to play on them. The fairy was going to magically cast a spell and take the girls back in time just to see what they would do. As Lasha and Jalen walked down the driveway towards the sidewalk, they passed through an almost invisible curtain of shimmering light. And when they stepped onto the sidewalk, the girls went back in time 150 years. Instead of the sidewalk, street, and homes of their neighborhood, they were on a wooden sidewalk beside a dirt road. And in front of them was a store with the sign Oshawa General Store hanging above the door. They were no longer wearing jackets, pants, and running shoes. Now they were dressed in olden day dresses with bonnets on their heads and strange shoes on their feet. Jalen's iPad had turned into a pencil with a pad of paper. The girls looked at each other and their mouths dropped open. Lasha said, "I didn't know make-believe could be so real looking." Jalen said in a hushed voice, "Lasha, it is real. My iPad is now a pencil and a pad of paper." "Well, let's go into the store since we're here anyway," said Lasha, and she pulled open the wooden door, causing a bell to jangle as the girls stepped further into the past. The first thing the sisters noticed was that the store was quite dark. There wasn't enough light coming through the glass at the front of the store. The only illumination was from gas lamps that were situated on the walls and the pillars in the middle of the store. The gas lamps cast a yellow light over everything in the store. On one side of the store was a wooden counter with a man standing behind it, wearing a striped shirt buttoned all the way to the neck. And he had a bow tie with wire-framed glasses perched on his nose. He smiled at Lasha and Jalen as they came into the store. On the other side of the store were open shelves stacked with items. They saw jars of preserves, strange and old-looking hardware items, and lots of work pants with shirts. Along the aisle in the center of the store were open barrels of grain with cloth bags of flour. Lasha looked up at the man behind the counter and asked, "Can you tell me which of the items in this store were made within 50 kilometers of here?" "Do you mean 50 miles?" answered the man. Yes, that is what I mean," answered Lasha. "Well, pretty near everything here is local," said the man, "except those clothes on the shelf. Those were brought in on the train all the way from Montreal." The man beamed proudly when he said that. "Mrs. Hudson made these candies last week in her kitchen," said the man as he pointed to the glass jar of striped candies on the counter. Lasha whispered, "Jalen, write that down. It'll be great for my presentation." Just at that moment, there was a commotion coming from the back of the store, and a small boy, about 5 years old, dressed in old-looking clothes, ran up the aisle, clutching an apple in his hand. The man stepped out from behind the counter and grabbed the boy by the back of his jacket, just as he was trying to escape with the apple. "Hold on a second there, Johnny," said the man. "Did you pay for that apple?" The little boy dropped his head as he squirmed in the grasp of the much bigger man. "I didn't think so," said the man. "I'll just take that back before it gets damaged, thank you." And he reached down to take the apple back from the little boy. "I'll pay for that apple," said Jalen, and she held out a quarter that she took from her purse that somehow had magically appeared on her arm. "It only costs a nickel, missy," said the man. "Are sure you want to do that?" "Yes, I do," replied Jalen. "Here." And she extended her arm higher in the air. "Okay," said the man, "only that boy always tries to get away with pinching apples from me, and I'm on to him now." The man took the quarter and released the boy, who ran out of the store with his apple. The bell on the door jangled again as the door flew open and closed. During the confusion, a beautiful orange butterfly, which must have flown into the store, settled on Lasha's shoulder. It just sat there on her shoulder, slowly opening and closing its wings. The man gave Jalen her change and thanked her for the purchase. The sisters took one last look at the store and then walked out onto the street. The little boy was nowhere to be seen. The only thing they did see was a horse pulling a wagon along the dirt road. "Okay, how are we going to get home now?" asked Jalen. Just then, the butterfly sprung off Lasha's shoulders and danced in the air in front of their face. It seemed to say, "Follow me." So they did. They followed the butterfly along the wooden sidewalk, and then they passed through an almost invisible curtain of shimmering light again. Instantly, they were back on the sidewalk in front of their home. Their clothes had returned to normal as well. Jalen said, "Hey, I've got my iPad back," and she held it up in the air. The sisters looked at each other with the shared knowledge that they had experienced something magical. Then they ran into their house as fast as they could to tell their mom all about their adventure. They didn't notice that the butterfly settled onto the tree in front of their house and silently turned itself back into the smiling, mischievous fairy. The fairy began to think of the next adventure as it settled into its home in the tree. The end.